and then we'll figure out how to start it, I suppose.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, cool. All right. So, welcome to the Gaming Dads podcast. My name is Scotch, Scotch and Tie guy, full name, but you can call me Scotch, of course. In here
Just
with
Scotch.
just Scotch, and in with me is Tharoah.
What's up?
So starting this podcast, man. How you feeling about starting this thing?
Really good. It's kind of been something I wanted to do for a while. But there's so many podcasts out there that I wanted it to be something that's kind of different from what's out there, I guess. And it helps that you and I are both actual dads.
Mm-hmm.
In providing that perspective of being a little bit older and providing a different viewpoint than I guess a lot of gaming podcasts would be. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, no. I mean, I've been thinking about this thing for a couple months now, and just like looking at the community and seeing, yeah, like you're right. There are podcasts out there. Two dads in particular, Cheese and Simply. They had one going on for a while. I think they did.
Time.
Yeah, I think they discontinued it though. But other gaming podcasts and that sort of thing, but nothing that like really focused on the community as a whole and
Right.
how the community is being affected and things that can be done to like actually start the conversation really on what's going on. The big thing for me that started it was the whole what was it, the GDQ incidents
Right.
with who's the SpongeBob speedrunner? I'm forgetting off the top of my head now.
Shift.
Yeah, that whole thing started, and people were like tweeting and talking and had paste bins left and right, but no one was like having a discussion about it. No one sat down and said, "This is what's going on, and this is the problem."
Right. And that happens a lot, even in the niche community of speedrunning, and that's what I wanted to kind of hint on as well. Is that you're a speedrunner, I'm a speedrunner, but this podcast in and of itself isn't necessarily just about speedrunning, which is really nice. But it's a place to be able to highlight some of the issues that are within our community. Why? Because we want to grow our community. We see what GDQ brings in the hundreds of thousands of viewers, but then any other time of the year, the speedrunning community is very small.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of exposing people to that has been something that I've wanted to push for a really long time.
Yeah, and like you said, the whole gaming community as a whole, for me, yeah, we can talk a little bit about where we started and how we got into gaming and everything. The first game I ever played was Super Mario 64.
Oh wow!
I remember I got that for my 6th birthday. It was like right after the game came out, and Pog for real. And I remember distinctly playing it with my uncles, and there was a moment we were playing around and everything like that, but then you get through the 30 star door, you go to DDD, you collect the star on the sub, and you come out and that water goes back, right? And you have that hole, and both my uncles and I were looking at it and we're just like, okay, what is this? So we jump in, and you jump into Fire Sea for the first time, and you hear the exact same music as Dark World. And all three of us looked at each other with like giant eyes, just went, Bowser number 2. And that's awesome. That like solidified me as like loving that game and just having the memories of playing with my uncles. So
for me it was a little bit different. Now I mean, I have my memories of Super Mario 64. I got it for Christmas when I was 12.
Old boy.
And, yeah, exactly. I am the dadliest man on Twitch. Just want to point that out. But so for me, I remember getting, a Sega Genesis, and me and my mom trying to play like Lion King, which is so impossibly hard, and I don't even understand why that was a children's game. But
why were those games so just insanely hard? Like, it was designed for children.
Right, exactly. But I'd have to sit there and watch my mom attempt over and over and over, and eventually she's just like, "Look, here, just take it, just figure it out." But my most fond game memory, I think, that really solidified me as a gamer would be every summer I would visit my grandfather in Alabama, Now, that side of the family was always like super religious and super hardcore, but he was a gadget nerd and he loved little gadgets. So what did he buy? A Super Nintendo. And playing Super Mario World and figuring out that between my grandfather, my cousin, and I, figuring out that we could get to Bowser without going through any of the worlds by going through Star World was like the coolest thing ever. I mean, I would fight Bowser over and over and over just because I could. And that's what really solidified me with gaming in general. When it wasn't linear, I guess. Like Super Mario Brothers is very linear. Yeah, you got warps and things like that, but Super Mario World, you had a choice. You can go left or you can go right, or there's a special exit that's kind of hidden. And I like that.
Yeah, I gotta say, I remember playing Super Mario World for the first time too, and just remembering, you could split off in those two directions. That's really, that's how you see the growth of gaming, really going from, like you said. I think Super Mario Brothers, Super Mario World, and Super Mario 64. If you lined them up side by side, it would really show you the progression of how games have been developed over time.
Oh yeah.
Not only you have this 2D area, and you go in one direction, you go left to right, and then you have 2D, but you can go in a couple different directions. You can kind of choose your path, and then all of a sudden you've got 3D, and you can go wherever the heck you want to go.
Right.
So,
and that's why Odyssey really capitalized on that with adding those 2D sections and bringing back that nostalgia. So, I think it's really cool to see it come full circle.
Now, we talk about getting into gaming. What got you into speedrunning?
Now, speedrunning. Now, that's a funny story. I got to clear my throat for this one. Yeah. So, I thought, and I know, look, I'm going to get close to the mic here. I thought that speedrunning was dumb. Like, I'm literally, I remember being, I have a friend of mine, his name was Kurojin Ryu. And he used to love to watch speedrunning, tried to get me into GDQ, and I'm like, look, this is really dumb. All they got to do is jump 3 times, spin around. Now they're flying through a wall, and they win. That's not beating a game. Come on, you're cheating. So I thought it was dumb. And I remember I came home late from work one night, and Curl was like, hey, look, there's this guy. You got to check him out. He's not your typical speedrunner who's just kind of staring at the screen. And it was Buka, right around the time that Buka got partner. So this was like 3 years ago. And so I watched him, and I'm like, this guy is hilarious. And
he's a character.
He really is. And rip SM64 speedruns with Buka because he's doing Mario Maker now. But I've got to give him props where props are due. That he really knew how to bring new people into speedrunning and expose them to what it really is. And then when I started to understand that, wow, like these things that people are doing are like frame perfect, or you put a lot of time and effort into them, I'm like, let me try it. All right. And there's a clip I'll actually share on our social sites after this of my very first 70-star run. That I think I'd only done 2 splits. So I'd done Womps 8 and Dark World. The Dark World exit was 56 minutes. Well, I reset at that point, and I was attempting Lakitu skip. And I hadn't learned anything. So I'm literally just running up to the bridge, and I jump on the bridge and go, up, almost. And it was so far off from what Lakitu skip should be. But in my mind, I thought that I almost did it. And ever since then, I've been hooked. Speedrunning, it changes how you look at games. It's crazy. But what about you? You talked about Super Mario 64, but what got you into actually speedrunning?
So, before I always, like I said, always been into games. I kind of tapered off of gaming, quote unquote, when I got into college. I played a lot of TF2 with one of my best friends, and just did that, because it was just it was super easy. You had a laptop, you had a mouse, you could play TF2, no problem. And that's really all I did for a long time. And then when I graduated college, I started like playing other games because I was like, oh, now I have money and I can actually afford to buy games on my own. So I started looking at different games. The first one was Skyrim.
Right.
And played through that because I love stories. I love pretty games that just have nice music and nice themes and that sort of thing. I know that Skyrim is like one of the more generic games from Bethesda, but I still loved it, and I still do. But gradually, slowly but surely, I got into older and older games. My wife, girlfriend at the time, got me an N64 and Super Mario 64 for my birthday because I had sold it when I was 16 at a garage sale because I stopped playing it, which was the dumbest mistake I've ever made.
Oh, yeah.
It's super dumb. And started playing that. I got all 120 stars in 3 days. I was like, oh, that's so fast. I did it so quick.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Yeah. So I just moved back to Jacksonville where I got married to my wife, and around October of 2018, I was just looking on YouTube, and Summoning Salt's video on the 120 star speed run for SM64 popped up on my feed, and I was like, oh, what is this? And I watched it and I was like, wait a minute, there's a whole thing for this? Like, this is a thing? Because I remember when I was a kid, I was like, oh, how fast can I beat this? And, trying to beat certain stars as quick as I could without having any knowledge of anything at all.
Oh, of course.
And, just to know that there's a community for this. And like, I'm not the kind of, like, when you looked at me if you met me at AGDQ, or if you met me anywhere, if you first looked at me, you'd probably say, oh, that guy's a frat guy. That guy is like into this and he's not into that. He drinks scotch, he dresses well, quote unquote, and smokes stogies, and he does all this other stuff. This guy isn't into video games, but like this whole world all of a sudden opened up for me, where it was like, oh, you can there's a whole community for this. There are people of every background and every skin color, every denomination, every sexual orientation, whatever you want to call it. They're all playing games to play them as fast as they can, and they're playing it because they love it.
Right.
And that's where I got into like the first game I speed ran was Plague Inc. Evolved.
Really?
You think like, what the heck? Why? How? It's completely RNG.
Are you talking about the mobile game?
Yeah. No. So the mobile game is also on console. It's on Steam.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So the reason why I started doing that is because I was doing research. I was like, oh, what game can I speed run that like I can pick up, put it down really easily, or learn really quickly? And I watched a video of the person who has the world record, and the entire any percent run of the world record, he just complains the whole time.
Right.
Like he's just yelling and screaming until he gets the world record. He's like, oh, I got it. Like he's complaining about RNG and everything like that. Right. And I was like, I can't have this person have the world record and have their video be just them complaining for 45 seconds. And then all of a sudden they get the world record. So I started grinding. I never got the world record. I got down to number 2 on the leaderboard.
Oh, wow.
But that's where it started. And then just slowly moved over to SM64 and realizing, oh, I can still do this even though I'm like 26, 27 years old. Most of the kids and most of the people playing these games in the community are like 17 to 21 years old. They're not old fogies like you and I.
Right. And that's kind of what I've seen. And don't get me wrong, there are some phenomenal runners out there that are super humble that make me look like I'm like the biggest complainer in the world, and shout outs to folks like Tom Carr and Benji, that they just have this natural talent, and they are very young. I mean, they picked up a game that was from my childhood and were able to master it very, very quickly. So, I mean, that can kind of be, I don't want to say intimidating for some of our older fogies.
Oh God,
here.
yeah, no, that's I would say intimidating.
But I think that also kind of molds what the community is. On the viewer standpoint and on the runner standpoint, just in how we react to situations. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, we'll get into that more later, but like you were saying, when I first looked at the community, I was completely intimidated. I was like, there's 70 star. No way. There's no way I can do that. Well, I was like, oh, I want to do 120. And then I watched 120. I'm like, there's no way in heck I'm going to do 120.
Exactly. What, Rainbow Ride 100?
Oh, God. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
So I found my happy spot with 16 star because it's short enough where, I don't have to dedicate hours and hours to it that some of these kids have to be able to do that. Because, we're dads, we have kids, we've got wives, we've got, lives to maintain. Not saying that teenagers don't have a lot, but all they really got to do is go to school, come home, do homework, and then they can just speed run.
Right.
We don't have that ability. So 16 star was a great spot. I'm gonna try 70 star. And
70.
Just
look, and I'll tell you this. I was told when I started speedrunning Super Mario 64, do 16 star, but limit yourself 70 stars where it's at. And I never believed anybody. I was like, no, you're stupid. And some of my viewers actually remember when I first started 70 star, they would say things like, hey, is your body ready for this run? Because, this is going to we're in for the long haul now.
Yeah.
And, since I moved to 70, I tried a 16 the other day, and I found that I'm happier only because BLJs are hard. And it's like, to me, I know it's not, I know it's rhythm, but to me, it's almost like hand RNG. So it's really nice doing 70 star, and I found, no joke, my PB in 16 stars in 1959. My goal was sub 20, so I got a 1959 poggers. But I went back the other day. We watched on my stream one of my oldest 16 star PBs, which was like 24 minutes, and the goal was for me to beat that. Well, going into BLJs, I was on pace to hit an 18-minute time. But then BLJs, of course, being out of practice. So, I really enjoy 70 because I don't have that like looming over my head, I guess. Mm-hmm. But it's improved my 16 drastically just in how I move the fat red man around the screen.
Right. No, that's what I've heard from everyone is that 70 star is just like it's the 16 star is fun and it's quick. But 70 star is where you learn to play SM64. If we're being honest, it's 120, but 70 star is that nice little happy spot where you're doing hard strats, but at the same time, you're not doing something like BLJs where it's quote unquote RNG to a certain degree.
It's a good balance. Yep. So you've got that quickness, but you're not grinding out 100 coin stars until you're blue in the face. Yeah. Right now I'm on the cusp of that sub one time. It's like I can taste it. It's like right there. But it's interesting with speedrunning in and of itself. I didn't realize it until probably a couple of months back how mental it is.
Oh yeah.
How you're in your own head.
That's the truest thing.
And what's crazy, I guess it was a little longer than a couple of months, but I didn't realize it until commentating through GSA, watching the SMO sub-hour back and forth that was going on last year, mm-hmm. if you remember.
Yep, totally. I was there for I was commentating all of that, man.
And if you remember, as soon as the very first sub one happened, which I believe was Chaos Sprinkle, if I'm not mistaken, mm-hmm. As soon as it happened, boom, the next person gets it. Boom, the next person gets it. And then it's just like dominoes falling over.
Oh, it just went off. That was an insane time period. Well, and especially because you had, was it 3.0 came out?
Right.
That was at pace.
1.3. 1.3, yeah.
Excuse me, 1.3, you're right. Right at pace 2019. And it was just like right after pace, it was like the SMO community went off.
Oh, man. And it's crazy. I remember being at pace when it came out last year and sitting with Danger saying, oh my God, all of these things that you just taught me over the last 6 months are like utterly pointless now.
Oh yeah.
But as soon as that sub hour hit, going back to that mental thing, as soon as that first person got the sub hour, like I said, it was like dominoes. So people are realizing, oh man, this is something that's achievable. And so I do want to kind of highlight on something from one of my really good friends in speedrunning, and I'm sure you saw it. This was about a month and a half ago. It was a race between Simply and Cheese. Do you know what I'm referring to?
Yes.
So it was a race between Simply and Cheese. Simply had his chat off and was not watching Cheese. Cheese had already quit. He had already rage quit and Simply did not realize it.
Oh,
Simply,
yeah. I know what you're talking about now. Yep.
so Simply, he ended up with a 145, which is great for him coming back to Super Mario 64. That's a great time, you know? And he got up after the run, didn't say a word, got up, got a Cliff Bar, came back, sat down, and burst into tears. And that moment for me was so powerful because it helped me realize these guys that are running on this top level for the past 7-8 years, how much pressure is actually put on them to get that extra second lower.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Simply had achieved something that he hadn't achieved in a really long time. It's almost like Usain Bolt breaking the world record in the 200 meter. You know what I mean? It was such an emotionally powerful moment that it really highlighted even more so how mental speedrunning is.
Well, and to go deeper into what that all is, with Simply in particular, he had his hand all jacked up for so long. Like,
Right.
How hard is it for someone who just think about the thing that you just love to do? You love to do it every single day, or as a hobbyist, you when you go out and do it, you're in your happy place. For me,
Right.
that's surfing, right? Like I like being out in the ocean, no one around, just me and the board and the water. It's just awesome.
Right.
That's my spot. If you cut off my legs and I
Right.
couldn't surf anymore, I would lose my mind. And I think that's what it was for Simply for so long. I can't speak for him, but just like watching
so
him
too.
and again seeing the 145 that you're mentioning, just coming back and realizing I can do this again. Like
Right.
that's got to be so powerful.
Because a lot of folks don't know, but years ago, those were the bros. It was Cheese, it was Simply, it was Punkation, Benny. Those were Siglimic. Those were the core of this community. That's kind of what the community has almost been founded upon. Are these guys who have been around for so long? So, yeah, I mean, that's realizing that he was able to come back to doing something that he loved that was so questionable for so long. I remember talking with him at Pace and just talking about his hand and even spending time on his stream where literally his entire stream, all he's doing is stretching. Stretching and talking about, what his goals are, what he wants to do, what he wants to get back to. And I think that it all built up to that moment a few weeks ago and just kind of overflowed.
Yeah. Now, we've been talking about SM64. Is there anything else that you speedrun or are interested in at least?
So right now, I do have a posted time for Super Mario Odyssey. I'm terrible at posting to SRC. That's my problem. But Super Mario Odyssey is another one of my babies that I really enjoy playing and enjoy trying to figure out situations. I wouldn't really want to say glitch hunting, but I like to play around and figure out, okay, well, what jumps are possible. So I'll probably be getting back into darker side runs since, we have lots of time on our hands here recently.
Yeah.
But, that's something I ask my community all the time is, what would you guys like to see me learn? I always, on my stream, I've kind of been hard-headed. And so a lot of my practice happens offline. But I'm starting to realize that people want to see that process. They want to see, how you learn how to speedrun a game. They find it really interesting. So I think kind of leaving it up to my community on voting on what they would like to see and to see me learn, I'm 100% okay with that.
Yeah. No, I mentioned, Plague Inc. Evolved. I didn't go straight from Plague Inc. to SM64. I actually found, I started playing this game. It was a free game for a little while called Kopka.
Kopka.
Copoka. And I looked up on Speedrun. There were 2 people running the game. and they hadn't posted times in forever. So I was like, oh, I'll run it, no problem. Within like 2 days, I had gotten 3 world records.
Wow.
Mainly because no one runs the game.
Now, is that the one with the bird?
Yes, that's the one with the bird. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and just I like really, really pretty games, so I just played that game over and over and over again, and then I realized, oh, there's a speed run for it. I figured out the strats pretty quick. I developed a couple of other smaller strats to help speed up the time a bit, and like I said, within 2 or 3 days, I had beaten 3 of the records. So
that is awesome.
Yeah, and then I've been playing a lot of Pokemon Stadium. I supposedly right now have a run at Pace 2020. We'll see if that happens or not.
Yeah.
But Pokemon Stadium, I mean, it's RNG, but that's another game that I remember playing as a kid, and just I loved Pokemon Stadium. So being able to it's a game that you can sit down and you can look at chat and you can read chat and you can interact with chat, but also play the game. And I really like that. You know, with SM64, you have to be on top of it constantly, especially with 16 star. But games that you can kind of just like, okay, we're going to chill for 2 hours. I'm going to play this game. I'm going to try to beat it as quick as I can, but also I'm going to interact with chat. You know,
it's really nice to have that, you know, and I think that's what a lot of people are looking for now, especially if you're not that top runner on the board. You know, I find I don't consider myself like a top level streamer at all, but chat interaction is huge, and that's one thing that's really difficult with speedrunning specifically, especially when you're on that top level. So you'll go into a stream and you're introducing yourself. Hey, how you doing? You know, I'm new here. I want to check it out. And you're not getting a whole lot of interaction. I think that kind of turns people off a little bit to speedrunning in general. And I think that's why people like Cheese, Simply, Buka, even Punkation have done really, really well on the streaming side, is because they are able to sit back and interact with their chat.
They're able to go back and forth very easily.
Right.
Yeah.
And because I love, like, this is kind of my philosophy, is I love to raid small streamers. Like, that's what I do. And I love going in there and seeing the reaction of, oh my God, thank you so much for raiding me with, 35 people. This is awesome. Versus, someone who's going for a sub 20 time in 16 star and they're like, hey, thanks for the raid. I've got no mic on right now because I'm going for sub 20.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really important. I know Sean Rader recently just went to Pokemon for a while for the same reason that you're talking about. It's super chill, but I imagine on that top level it gets really frustrating with the RNG.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, no, like it's just I see. I found this nice little happy spot where I don't have to do the crazy fast strats that are like, oh, we're gonna use this Pokemon, and it's either you get it the first try or you don't, and you have to reset. I found like nice things where it's like, okay, this isn't the fastest strat, but it's consistent and it gets me out of this gym or it gets me out of this trainer so that I can move on. I can play the game. I'm not going to be going for a world record anytime soon, but at least I'm playing it.
Right.
But
and I think that's what's important.
Yeah. No. I mean, you were talking to me about your chat in particular yesterday. You guys had an interesting conversation apparently.
Oh yeah. So we. And you have to understand, so I stream at DGen hours just because that whole family thing is nothing quiet late at night,
Yeah.
Well, we started talking about is speedrunning an art, and that became a really I don't want to say heated topic of discussion, but it became a topic of discussion amongst like 4 channels at once. That's how it kind of blew up that quickly.
Oh man, so this became a thing last night.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, it definitely became a thing. So we can kind of start from there. What is your take? Do you think that speedrunning could be considered an art?
Well, I've been making a couple of videos on the side. I got laid off from my job about a year ago, but I found work recently, which was good. But in that time period, I started making videos because I started getting really into video games. I started watching, like Donkey, for instance. I was watching him a lot.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Awesome. And I realized, I was like, people are saying a lot of the same stuff. Like Donkey's a little over to the right. He'll say some stuff that other people aren't saying. But as far as video games went, I just heard the same thing over and over and over again. And I started realizing that I was thinking things that people weren't saying.
Right.
And the big reason for the podcast was because I'm thinking these thoughts, and I need to get them out, and because no one's talking about it or no one's saying this. So I started making videos, and one of the things that I did is I would make these longer videos discussing things that, again, were happening in the gaming community. One in particular was an article. You might remember the article about how the Goose Game, Untitled Goose Game, and how it's like how gaming is bad because you have to play the game to do so or whatever. It was some stupid article, and I kind of came to the realization while doing the video that gaming itself is an art.
It is,
as a whole, and you can't deny that. Movies are art, music is art, books are art, and in that same vein, video games become art. Like necessarily, was Pong art? Probably not. We could have that discussion, but something like Breath of the Wild, that's art. That's a beautiful game.
The question that people were asking, so maybe creating the game could be art. Now, is playing the game a form of art?
See, and that's part of the thing that I get into in that video is, with movies, books, music, you don't necessarily you participate in it by viewing or listening to it, right? You're consuming whatever it is the artist is giving you. Video games, on the other hand, by playing the game, you are participating in the art, like in a very literal way. Whether you like it or not, it's for Zelda to move, or excuse me, for Link to move, to move forward, I have to push forward on the joystick.
Right.
And because of that, there's an extra level there of kind of connectedness. I know that's not a word, but how connected the player is with the game itself. So I would say, yes, you playing the game is art because you are now controlling what happens to it. So not only are the programmers and the developers not only are they artists, but now you become an artist because you get to choose what happens. GTA in particular, I could do what the game tells me to do and drive over to the location and pick up this person and drive over to that location and shoot this guy, or I could just dick around, go steal a fighter jet and fly around and blowing up stuff, and trying to avoid 5 stars. I could choose what I want to do.
So the contention came from as well, they Googled definition of art, which gives 4 different definitions. One of them being a skill at doing a specified thing, typically one acquired through practice, is one of the definitions. So I wanted to take a step further the other night, and so went to Merriam-Webster, the dictionary that's been around since 1828.
The official.
Right. So, and I just want to read these really quick because it's very fast. The number 1 definition on here says skill acquired by experience, study, or observation, as in the art of making friends. Mm-hmm. That's one of the definitions. 2 is as a branch of learning. 3, an occupation requiring knowledge or skill, such as the art of organ building. Mm-hmm. 4, the conscious use of skill and creative imagination, especially in the production of aesthetic objects. Mm-hmm. 5, a skillful plan, which means, basically the quality or state of being artful. Or 6, decorative or illustrative elements in a printed matter. Now, if you take all 6 of those and combine them into one definition, then yes, speedrunning in and of itself is an art.
Oh, 100%. I mean, especially when you come to like that creative aspect of it, right? How do we come up with these strats? You have to you have to like analyze the crap out of these games and then like realize, oh, I can do this triple jump here. What if I did it over here? That's creative. That's
Right.
coming up with something new. That's being creative.
Now, the devil's advocate argument, I guess, there would be, well, what about the people that are just running the game? They're just creating a glitch that someone else found and was creative in. Now, I said, so does that mean if I'm at home and I decide to recreate a painting of the Mona Lisa, does that make my painting of the Mona Lisa any less art?
Right. Well, and you could go, oh my gosh, what I'm missing names and stuff like that today. Who is the guy who like did all the art videos, like instructing people how to do art?
Bob Ross.
Bob Ross. Like,
yeah,
he's an artist very clearly, right? But he's
right.
teaching other people how to do art in the way that he does it. So if I copy him, am I no longer an artist?
Right.
Like it's in that same vein. Yeah. Like I didn't come up with the strat. You're right, but I took someone's idea, expounded upon it, did my own thing with it, and like learned it in my own way, or even was taught it, like Bob Ross teaching me how to paint, and then I did it on my own,
Right. Well, in breaking it down, if you go into synonyms for art are skill, cunning, craft, artifice. So to me, almost anything can be an art.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and now if you're looking at like speedrunning and trying to compare it to, Da Vinci, of course, it's not the same. No one says it's the same. There's, different levels of that. But to me, it doesn't make it any less art. That's why and this argument is argued by, governments. It's argued all over the world, specifically when it talks to like nudity in art. And is this really art? So this isn't a argument necessarily just for speedrunning. So I kind of expect it to be split a little bit of what people think.
Well, and that's the tough thing, right? When you talk about what's art, right? Like I think that's what the crux of the matter is, right? Like breaking it down to what exactly qualifies something as art and what qualifies something as not art. Like the David, right? The statue David.
Right.
That's art. It's a nude, but it's art.
Right.
Whereas like pornography, that's not art.
Right.
That's pornography. Right. Those are two separate things. I mean, it contains sort of the same thing. People are naked, and it's
right
done in a fashion directed by whatever. But there's very clearly a difference. And I think that you can take speedrunning and move it over into the art category. The thing is, you have to kind of like expound your idea of what art is. It's no longer just the Mona Lisa. It's no longer just cooking very, very well like Gordon Ramsay.
Right.
It's no longer writing an amazing piece of fiction. It's no longer creating good, like genuinely good cinema. It's no longer just that. When new technologies are created, when new things are created, new art forms expound from that. Like cinema wasn't an art form until someone created a camera and decided, oh, you can do something interesting with this, and did something else.
Right.
Right. And I'm sure that people, when movies first came out, I'm sure people were like, no, this isn't art. That's not art.
You're just taking a picture of what someone else did.
Exactly. And then photography, in that same vein, photography. Oh, that's not an art. You're just taking a photo. You're not doing anything. No, there's more to it. And I think that video games and speedrunning as a whole, there's art to be done there. Now, obviously, there are certain aspects of speedrunning that aren't art, right? Like, let's talk about SMO, for instance. Nipple %.
Yeah.
That's not art.
That's definitely a meme. 100% a meme. Yeah. And it's funny how all of those categories come around because they don't exist in the beginning. But I think people just get bored.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, I'm not saying it's not a bad thing by any stretch of the imagination. Like, speedrunning is this beautiful little area where it's like 120. That's art. SM64 120 star. That is the most pure form of SM64. I think everyone can agree upon that.
I agree.
Yeah.
But I mean, watching Aki even do a 16-star world record.
Yeah.
Like, we used to call him the robot because he's so consistent, because he's perfecting his craft.
Mm-hmm. But then on the other end of that, you've got meme stuff like nipple percent, where it's just like, you know what, it's a video game. This can still be fun. Like, we don't have to take it too seriously.
And nobody said that art couldn't be fun.
Oh yeah, no.
So, I mean, it's almost along the lines of a year or two ago, they were talking about, is speedrunning an esport or a sport in general?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm actually going to plug the two guys you mentioned earlier, because there's a great podcast, Two Dads podcast with Simply and Cheese, that did an entire episode on, is speedrunning an esport or a sport?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember watching it live, and I remember almost being triggered a little bit by some of the things that were being said, but it was presented in such a way that it made perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
So if you haven't checked that out, Scott, you need to check that out.
Oh yeah, definitely. Cool. I like that topic. That was fun. Now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Now, have you been buckling down? I mean, we see what's been going on around the world lately.
Yeah, I mean, right now here in Louisiana, I'm in New Orleans. New Orleans has had a lockdown for about a week now, and then they're shutting down the whole state here in about 4 hours.
Oh, good.
So, because it's kind of scary, but Louisiana has had more positive cases and more deaths in the last couple of days than anywhere in the world. So, they're really pushing us hard, which kind of gives us more time to be at home with the family and do what we love, or what we do best, which is playing video games.
Yeah. No, it hasn't been all good for video games lately, though. E3 canceled. I mean, it's a promo
huge
event, but E3, the biggest event of the year, canceled.
And that's huge. One of my viewers, Oddcat, is a developer who was going to be showcasing his brand new game at E3. So, where E3 was like the place where everybody went to showcase, what's going to happen next year, now it's going to be scattered, to the four winds. Everybody's going to be coming out and saying, hey, check out my YouTube video where we're going to be talking about our new game coming up.
Mm.
You're not going to have that in consolidated one spot. So I think it's going to be interesting, not having that one place to go to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I agree. And like I said, E3 is a giant promo event, right? And it's really to promote and have the developers out there selling their game. But at the same time, it's a nice time for us who enjoy these games to see, okay, this is what's coming out, and prepare for, what's to come, and to see the new innovations and everything like that. Xbox in particular, they showcased the Xbox Gen X,
Right.
That's huge. That was huge to see. And I mean, lots of memes come out of E3 all the time. So of course we love that stuff.
But, of course.
But, I think you're going to see a progression towards more of like the Nintendo Direct sort of thing that you've seen, because especially with E3 being canceled, I think that, companies are still going to want to plug it somehow.
Oh, of course.
So,
of course. But now they're going to have to find a way to do that in a new one, where before you could have that live fan reaction, now it just may be a stage and a tech demo live on stream. Or and somehow make that stream more interactive with whatever these events are. Now, the AAA guys, they'll be fine. The big boys like Nintendo, Microsoft, Sony, they'll all be fine. My concern is that E3 is also used away from the main stage to be able to promote a lot of these indie developers. So I think it's going to have a huge effect on them, where before they had this huge platform over, thousands and thousands and thousands of people watching. or going to these events, now they're not going to have that anymore.
Yeah.
That was their exposure time to be able to say, hey, Epic, look at me, I've got this thing coming out, or hey, Rockstar, what do you think about this, as they're just walking through the event area. So I think we're going to see more of a long-term hit from that than we will from the big boys.
Oh yeah, and it's just crazy that like it's all from this crazy virus that's coming around,
Right.
Pace, Pace is coming up in May. Is it going to happen?
It's
still technically on, but my doubts are getting higher and higher as we get closer and closer to it.
I agree. I went to, of course, Pace 2019. I'm wearing the Pace shirt right now as we speak. My wife and I went along with one of my mods, and the area that it's in is actually a racetrack, a horse racetrack, and there's a little convention area almost where we were. Well, it's very, very small, like very small.
Mm-hmm.
Where even the amount of people that we had last year, which was maybe 100, 150 people, would be too big compared to what like the state of Maryland is allowing people to gather now. So playing it by ear is going to be really tough, because you're bringing in runners and commentators from around the world that have to be able to plan. So I don't know. I'm still up in the air on it.
Yeah, no. As well as especially with just flights being canceled, the whole world's going on lockdown.
Right.
Like you said, like here in Florida, you can't gather with more than 50 people.
Right.
No official gatherings of 50 people or more. Like we're not in a full lockdown like y'all are, but we're getting close, and it's just it's 2 months away technically, but I don't know. It's the doubts are high. It's unfortunate. You don't want to see something like Pace go away, because
you don't.
Pace is this
it
nice.
Just started.
Oh yeah, that number one, it just started. Number two, it's this nice dichotomy from AGDQ, where
Right.
AGDQ is all about charity and everything and Pace is like, nah, this is all about the speed running. Like we're purely focused on speed running. And AGDQ, yeah, we love the speed running and everything like that, but it's all about charity, and it's all directed towards charity. So we have to do things a certain way. With Pace, you don't have to do things a certain way, because
Right.
it's not directed towards the charity aspect of it. Like people are actually winning money in some of these situations, and that makes it, like you're talking about, these esports, makes it way more interesting.
It does, and bringing that competitive aspect to speedrunning, because to me, when I look at speedrunning, I'm against myself. Like that's literally the only person I'm competing against. I don't worry about the leaderboard, anything. I worry about beating my PB. Well, GSA providing that, racing mentality that so many people love, that would be huge if they had to cancel the event. However, what they could still host the event, but it would almost be by proxy.
Yeah, that's what the discussion that I've seen on there lately is just like, okay, everyone's kind of starting to talk about doing this all online, which
Steve
would be
O'Broil,
such a bummer.
Steve O'Broil is the, I believe he's the CEO. I can't remember if it's him or Milo. I know they both run that organization. But Steve has to fly all the way from Australia.
Yeah.
It's not a short flight at all. So, that may be a viable option that GDQ wouldn't have. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, totally.
Because GDQ they maintain such harsh control over their content, because the audience is so huge that, they're not going to have the ability that Pace does. Pace does have a lot more flexibility to do those kind of proxy events and coordinate a little bit better, because it is a smaller event.
Yeah. Now, the gaming world at large, it's been interesting since the virus. Recently you had I think it was an official come talk live with Trump, and she was calling out to millennials.
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
This is the most legendary thing I've ever. If this isn't the greatest thing that's ever happened in speedrunning, I mean, like, yes, Cheese getting the 138 live, that was amazing. Okay, but
Right.
let's talk about an official person, a person who's like to come talk to us on live television, called out to millennials who, and now I'm quoting, somehow can beat a game, go from level 3 to level 7. I didn't even know you could do that.
Right.
Like, very clearly talking about the Super Mario Brothers speed run.
Right.
Like, on live like, that's the most amazing thing that's happened.
It is, and it shows the impact, and I think what she was trying to highlight there was how we look at things, particular in our generation, I guess. Mm-hmm. Where she even commented in there, I can't remember the quote, but she said, "Yeah, I used to go level by level, floor by floor, and we got these guys just skipping it." And what I think was powerful there was how she was highlighting the way that we in our generation think. And making the point of, hey, we need you guys healthy because of this.
Yep.
So,
and then
that's huge.
Yeah, and I just thought it was not only is it significant in that way, but also it's just hilarious. But then, you have this. I've seen this building thing lately, of you had Trump say it a couple of months back after the shooting, video games cause violence, whatever, that whole thing came up. But then I sent you this guy, Dave Vecchio. Yeah. I didn't even know he was an actor. I didn't even know who this guy was.
Vecchio, yeah.
He talks about how we need to stop online gaming because it takes up too much bandwidth. And
yeah, and here's the exact tweet here. Video game players are urged to play at reasonable times to avoid putting an extra strain on internet networks during the coronavirus outbreak. Online gaming is the biggest threat to internet bandwidth these next few weeks. Now,
no.
Now this man, I'm on his Wikipedia page now. This man honorably served with the army for a little while. Looks like he made a citizen's arrest at one point. But he's been in movies that I don't think I've ever heard of.
Yeah.
Just kind of going through these, they look like B movies. So what makes him suddenly the expert on internet bandwidth and how it works? Because I don't think he quite understands how it works.
Not only is it's just wrong. If you look into it, I didn't realize this myself, but you don't need that much internet speed. You don't need that much bandwidth from your internet provider to play online games. You actually you need the lowest amount. You don't need that much. It's streaming is the problem.
Right. And that's where even a couple of replies that I'm looking at, 1 hour of Netflix is around 11 gigs. That equals several days of continuous gaming. He was pretty much roasted alive by the gaming community in these 11,000 responses full of nothing but gaming memes from what I can see.
Oh yeah.
But it was very ignorant to post. It was I still don't quite understand. I mean, I can understand if you didn't understand how the internet worked, but what's going to be killing internet bandwidth is, again, Netflix, Hulu. But we also, it's 2020. I have fiber internet myself. I'm pretty sure that I could run everybody around my house, run all of their Netflix, and we would still be 100% fine. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I'd like to kind of add on to that was, I don't know if you knew this, but there were reports out of California that a lot of internet service providers were actually throttling Twitch specifically.
Oh, geez.
So I'm trying to find the link here, but basically not only the watching of Twitch, but also uploading and streaming on Twitch. People who wouldn't have an issue streaming in 1080p, all of a sudden now their streams are down to 160p and buffering. So you've seen now VPNs being purchased left and right, specifically in California, to bypass that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, we could go back to the whole net neutrality thing. That's what it kind of sounds like to me. Just the disaccess or the unaccessibility of certain, websites and uploading and downloading to those certain things. And, as much as I'm for like private corporations being able to do or say what they want or doing what they want to do and providing their services in the way that they want to, I think that we're living in a time, like you said, it's 2020, where the access to those certain things around the world is so significant that if you're not doing that here in America, a country that strives itself on being like ahead of the curve of everyone,
right?
But to be providing services in this way, it's kind of bizarre. Like I think it was South Korea South Koreans are able to get much faster internet for significantly cheaper than we Americans can. And I get that they're a smaller country, they have a smaller infrastructure and everything like that. We have multiple service providers available for internet and cable. It doesn't make any sense that we're not able to do that here as well. And it sounds funky at the end of the day. It just sounds like it's like I'm paying this much for this kind of access, and then all of a sudden, just on this specific site, you're throttling me. It kind of sounds kind of weird.
Yeah, I agree, and it's something that definitely needs to be brought up once again. I think once all this coronavirus stuff goes away.
Yeah. I don't know. We're living in a weird time right now.
It's a very...
As soon as this gets over, I think that everything is going to slowly but surely come back to normal. The economy is going to take a hit. Unfortunately, people's lives are going to take hits. I'm sure I know your family's been affected. My family's been affected.
Oh, 100%.
It's just been crazy. And I know people around the world whose family, has been affected by this in one way or another. So, definitely hope for a swift end to this, just in general, especially for us as gamers.
Oh yeah.
So, but enough with the negativity. A little bit of positive here for just a moment. Epic Games, the Epic Games store, right?
Yes.
Epic Games. About a year ago, it was a giant meme. That Epic Games was going to be selling games. They were known for Fortnite. Fortnite's the giant meme. I think I was one of those people who loved Fortnite when it first started. I still think it's a good game, but now it's just the way it is. It's like I stay away from it. But recently, I've been paying attention to this a lot because I'm really interested in game sales and how developers push their games. But Epic Games has been giving away a bunch of games for free. As of late, it's been crazy. Celeste was the first one that I saw. That was the big one. I picked that one up. But then recently they've been pushing like 2 or 3 games for free every couple of weeks. A Short Hike right now recently was on that list. And
looks like right now the Stanley Parable and Watch Dogs.
Oh yeah. I mean, Watch Dogs is a decent game. Stanley Parable, obviously iconic. Definitely a game that you need to play at least once in your lifetime. But I think about this, and I think about how Epic Games was this meme, and how don't have. If you had the Epic Games launcher on your computer, you were a has-been. You were a casual, right? But now you look at it and you're saying,
hold on, wait a second.
Yeah, this could be actually like a competitor to Steam, because for years Steam had been thrashed for doing this or that thing, pricing games a certain way or selling games that they shouldn't be. You had that school shooter game that was being published.
Right.
They didn't, contain that in time, and it got out to the public, and they finally shut it down. My big thing was there was no competitor for such a long time. You had Humble Bundle, you had GOG, but they didn't really do the job that you were looking for it to do, especially with Humble Bundle.
Right.
Like, most of those keys were for Steam anyway.
Right.
So,
well, I mean, Origin attempted, but the problem is that Origin loved to limit their stuff to EA titles.
mm-hmm.
They would do like some indie things here and there of people that they really wanted to push. But you're right, there hasn't been a place online that has the library that Steam has. I haven't seen a place that really comes close to what it's almost like. Epic Games wants to put it out there, but they're not gonna go, full throttle.
Yeah, but what I think you're seeing is slowly but surely them kind of like, "Hey Steam, we're here, FYI."
Right.
Watch Dogs especially. That's a bigger title. Short Hike.
Oh yeah.
Short Hike isn't a giant title. Celeste isn't a massive. Like Celeste is an amazing game, but that's not a huge title necessarily.
It isn't.
Stanley Parable. That's a very cult classic community. But now you got Watch Dogs on that list, and I'm starting to think.
Right.
Now you've got some competition here, Steam. This might be for real, and I hate to say it, but it's all because of Fortnite that they're able to do this.
It is. And Watch Dogs, what is that? That's Ubisoft or Ubisoft.
Yep.
They're the developer for that. So it's showing that now, hey, Epic is willing to work with other publishers and other developers to come to their marketplace now. And the sales that they have on here are not bad.
Yeah,
even for the games that you can purchase.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. I mean, this is a great time for people who love video games because, again, you've had Steam for so long, and they would have sales, but it was just like, this is okay. This isn't a great thing. They had the summer sale. The summer sale's awesome, but it's only one time a year. But now you've got someone right next to them who is able to provide these big name titles that everyone loves. Like you said, they're selling games on sale, even not even for free, but for sale,
right.
That are good games that you want to play. And you know what? The Epic Games launcher, it works just fine. So
it does.
I mean, I can only see this going positively for people who love video games, especially in a time where picking up a video game is going to cost you $60+ if you want to play a bigger game. Even
right.
Untitled Goose Game was $20 when it first came out, and that game you can beat in under 30 minutes.
Right.
So,
I mean, and just Steam, I don't think that as of right this second they're really feeling, I don't know, intimidated, but I think that it's definitely on their radar.
It's coming soon.
That's really
for
is.
Sure. But I love paying attention to that kind of stuff. But anyway.
So sorry about that. So explain something to me. I know we kind of hinted on it before.
Yep.
All right. We talked about the average age of the people that are in like the speedrunning community, or even I'll even extend this out to like the Fortnite and Apex communities.
Mm.
Okay. And the average age of the person that's playing versus the things that go on in those particular communities. So the one that I'm going to bring up here is one that I know that you know about.
Mm.
That you and I have kind of talked about just a little bit. Super Mario Odyssey about a month ago.
Yeah.
So this is my understanding, and you can kind of correct me if I'm wrong in this situation. But Super Mario Odyssey, of course, is on speedrun.com. That's, you have your typical any percent that every single person runs. You've got all unique moons, which is just how it sounds. You got all of these different runs. All right. Well, there's a section that viewers wouldn't necessarily know because it's mainly for people who run the game, called category extensions, which has some of those meme categories that you and I discussed earlier, such as nipple percent,
the famous one,
right? All story moons, all purple coins, basically anything that's going to be outside of a normal run through of the game where it's got a special stipulation. So any percent minimum captures.
Mm-hmm.
Now this was a category that hasn't really been ran by anybody other than up until about, 13 captures was always the minimum for a really long time. Currently, there are 3 submissions on the board, all submitted within a month. And then you have 3 captures, which is some new tech that was just recently found, where you are able to use the 2-player mode to kind of help you with those captures.
Mm-hmm.
So at the time, correct me if I'm wrong, but Smallant was one of the only people that had submitted to this particular category. And so the debate had come up within the Super Mario Odyssey Discord about removing the category completely.
Mm-hmm.
Which, of course, with Smallant, that's one of the categories that he likes to run. Smallant being a partnered streamer on Twitch with a sizable community and following. That upset him.
Mm-hmm.
Of saying, what do you mean? What taking this category off? This is the category that I'm working on. What's going on? And it started a firestorm within the entire community where, people who aren't even running the game are now getting into this particular discussion.
Mm.
What is your take? I mean, I don't know if you knew how far it went. It went to the point of the rule discussions section of the Discord had to be completely shut down for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it was pretty extensive. I want to say this before I talk about it, because I don't want to come out here and say that I'm an expert on this topic. I'm not a Super Mario Odyssey runner. I know that you are, Tharoah. I'm not. Right. But again, my big thing about speedrunning is the community. I love focusing on the community, and I like seeing what the community itself can do. And again, the inner workings of it, kind of the speedrunning community as an organism, if you would.
Right.
And as a person looking from the inside or outside in, I this is what I noticed, at least. It's exactly what you said. It's, the discussion was this minimum capture stuff. Smallant being a big streamer on Twitch whose main category was 80% minimum captures. Again, source of income. It's what he does every single day. It's what he promotes every single day. Whether we like it or not, he brings people to the SMO community, whether they're to run minimum captures or not. And then all of a sudden, just this whole breakdown of the community. I mean, this broke the community.
It did.
It totally did. And the big reason why I wanted to talk about this today was because the lack of discussion, like straight up discussion, like you and me talking right now. The way that this happened was in back rooms, quote unquote,
right.
Discord, in the back room and on Discord between mods. There was a vote. I know there was a vote that was had. I thought right. For a while that they had gotten rid of rid of it, but I see it's up on SRC now, so maybe I'm wrong. But and then you had people on Twitch or on Twitter or on Discord writing these lengthy things saying this is what happened over here, and then they had the paste bins, and then they had the this, that, and the other thing, and the thing that I saw happen was that no one was having a conversation. It was just, here's my tweet and that's it, and then they walk away.
Right.
Even when and I don't fault anyone in the community for not coming onto the podcast and talking about this, but I asked like 4 or 5 people, and all of them declined. No one wanted to come on and talk about this. And get the record straight, exactly what happened and what the timeline was. And it's so unfortunate because this was a perfect opportunity for us to say, okay, we noticed that the problem is that, in these big events, there isn't a conversation being had. It's just paste bins and tweets. That's all it is. Or back rooms of Discords where like the majority of the population can't see it.
Right.
And that's what kind of frustrated me. And I kind of pieced things together from reading this person and that person and seeing what Smallant was saying and seeing what the mods in the SMO community were saying, just following that whole thing.
Right.
And my conclusion was this. Number one, you look on SRC, again, any percent minimum caps, 3 people are on the leaderboard.
Right.
For either category. I mean, there isn't anyone running this thing. And so it's kind of a dead category to a certain degree, right? No one's running it. It's not active at all. I totally get I like me, Kopka, right? Like on some of the leaderboards, I'm the only person on there, and I would be totally fine if they shut that side of speedrun.com down. If they shut down the whole Kopka leaderboards and everything, if they shut that page down completely, I would be fine with that, because there's no one else doing it, and that's fine. On the flip side of it, some of the arguments that they were making were saying that any percent minimum captures wasn't a speed run and it wasn't legitimate. And a part of me thought, okay, is Smallant right for going after these guys and saying these things and everything like that, or making accusations? Not really. He's not really in the right there. But are the mods in the right for just shutting down this category completely because it's not a quote-unquote legit speed run? Because you could say the same thing about any of these runs. The Koopa free running, that's individual. Like you're not speed running the game. You're speed running a game within a game.
Right.
Nipple percent. I mean, that's the classic one. I mean, if you're going to make an argument for keeping any percent min caps on there, then why keep nipple percent on there? Like that's the thing.
This debate actually, even though it really flared up about a month ago, this debate happened probably about a year to a year and a half ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you remember watching it, specifically Timpani and a couple other runners, the T Lounge, which is Dan, running a category called Damageless, which is basically all unique moons without taking any damage at all. Well, at that time, everything was pushed off to the side, saying that, hey, this is a challenge run. This is not a speed run. Like you're literally going as slow as you possibly can without taking damage. So that was kind of where that discussion came up from. And that was a lot of parallels were really made to say, hey, minimum captions aren't speed runs, they're challenge runs. So because Pack, who owns speedrun.com, owns literally everything. This was the discussion that we had with him about a year ago, where he said that, hey, yeah, damageless, the objective is not to take damage, not to beat the game as quickly as possible under a certain set of conditions. So how would you track that? Because you could have, because damageless at the time, I don't know if it still is, was tracked by the amount of moons that were completed, not even by the time of the game. Just as minimum captures is tracked at a 3 capture and a 13, I believe. Now, I think the SMO Discord and the moderators did a really good job at what the resolution was. So I'm not even sure if you know what the resolution was.
No, actually, I would love to hear that though.
So when the rule discussion board opened back up, they came out with a specific form called the SMOCE, or the Super Mario Odyssey category extension category request form. The top of the form says this is the form you need to use to request the category within the CE boards. Remember, you have to have at least one run with video approved before the mods will even consider adding it to the pending tab of the leaderboard. You can also submit for 2 more runners if there are any. Make sure to submit the info under the right section. So what they did was they created a tab. If you look under category extension, the bottom right is pending. So right now, 2 people have run a new category called All Hearts, which I guess is, just as it sounds, gaining all 198 hearts, life up hearts in the game. And they put it in here so that if it does survive, that and people want to run it, there is that ability that it can be added to the boards. And I think that that's a good compromise.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. It's a nice little middle ground where it's like we're going to test this out and see how it goes, and if it doesn't, like you said, if it doesn't survive, then what's the point?
Exactly. Now, one of the things that was really interesting about the situation um, with Smallant is when they were trying to, they first said, all right, let's take a poll. Well, here's the problem with taking a poll is that a lot of the runners were upset and saying that Smallant could use his viewership to skew that poll.
Yeah.
And I can see that. I could agree with that. To me, the boards are not for the viewers; they're for the runners. That's what it's there for.
Mm-hmm.
So I want you to kind of take a look really quick. If you guys are sitting at home, Super Mario World. If you search Super Mario World on speedrun.com, click on category extensions. This is what they were trying to prevent. Currently, under Super Mario World, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So there are a total of 49 separate category extensions.
This is a cavalcade, man.
and so, I think that's what in the minds of the Super Mario Odyssey community, I think that's what they were trying to prevent. Super Mario 64 has done a really good job at kind of pushing away some of those categories that don't make sense, that nobody's going to run. I mean, of course, you're going to have your meme categories that are going to be pushed by your higher level runners, like Simply Now doing the All Coins tournament. But after that tournament is done, there's not going to be very many more submissions. All Signs is another one that's here recently has been revitalized because of the bounty being broken. I think that's kind of where the focus has been. But I think, honestly, that's the thought process of the Super Mario Odyssey moderators, is that they didn't want it to become a wall of just random things. All right, we're going to create a category where you have to turn left 3 times and then jump off the side as fast as possible, and that's a new category.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what they were trying to prevent.
No, I 100% agree. And you go back to talking about speedrunning as an art form. You don't want to water it down. You don't want it to be such a such a watered down mess that when someone new comes in here, they look at it and they say, okay, 6 orbs. Why is there only 1 time on 6 orbs for Super Mario World, and it's a category extension? That doesn't make any sense at all. Things like nipple percent, I keep going back to it because it's such a good example. Like, nipple percent is this beautiful little spot where it's very clearly a meme category, but it's become such a good meme that it deserves a spot to stay on the category extensions.
Right.
It's just become a thing.
Let's see. It's got 150 submissions.
That's what I'm saying. That deserves the spot because it grew in such a way. Other categories aren't going to do that, and it's funny, like every once in a while the meme comes back up in the speedrunning community as a whole. Like come up with random speedruns because that's just what's happening. I mean, you see it very clearly on the Super Mario World extensions. It's just a wall. It's just all these random categories, and it's not active at all.
Right, exactly.
So
I mean, here's a perfect example. Maximum Wings has 2 entries, and they were both a year ago. 960 exits. The world record was 3 years ago. The earliest run was a year ago, and there's only 1 of those. 96 exit co-op 2 years ago has 1 entry. And that's what we don't want to see. We don't. Here's another perfect example. 11 exit no coins. There are 3 entries on it. The 3rd place person was 5 years ago. 2nd place was 4 years. 1st person was 3 years. Why is it there? Is it for clout? Is it just, because I can say I now have this world record? What is the purpose of the leaderboards?
Yeah.
If, like I said, you create a category where you turn left 3 times, jump off the side as quickly as possible, and that's a new category.
Yeah.
Where do you draw the line, I guess?
Yeah. And I mean, we can have a deeper discussion as far as that goes, and I think that should be on the mind of every speedrunner, and for that matter, the mods. That this should be something that the mods need to digest and really look at as an example of, okay, where, again, like you said, where do we draw the line? What is speedrunning? Like, that's really honestly what they've got to do, is say, okay, what is speedrunning, and how should that be presented? Because at the end of the day, speedrunning is a growing industry. If you want to become a speedrunner, and if you're between the ages of 12 and 17, and you want to be a speedrunner, especially with this whole virus thing going on, now is the time to do it.
Oh,
like,
100%.
I can only imagine guys like Benji and Zion and Mitch, these kids who have nothing better to do other than go on Twitch and stream. Like, now is the time. I tweeted it out. Like, 12 to 17-year-olds are about to become like really freaking good speedrunners because they've got nothing to do. But you don't want to water that down at the same time, like you're saying.
You don't.
And we've got to kind of come to an understanding of what speedrunning is. Understand, we're getting rid of this category. It's not because we don't like you. It's not because we're here to spite you in any way, shape, or form. It's just we're trying to market this in a way where everyone can digest it, and where it continues to grow. I went to AGDQ back in January, and I was appalled at how many people were there and how little was happening. Like, for AGDQ, yes, it's a big old event. There's a lot going on, quote unquote, but there should be more. Like, how are there not more like companies there, like advertising stuff? How is there not people selling stuff over here? Like, there's so much to be done in the speedrunning community that you're missing out on, and it's all because of presentation. And that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. And it's hard to hear because it's speedrunning, and it's something that is built by a community, and you want to keep it so community based, and I totally understand that. But at the end of the day, if we do this one thing and we just cloister ourselves off of this one area, or if we only talk about things via tweets and paste bins, nothing's going to happen.
Exactly.
So
there's no organization.
Oh yeah.
So I completely agree. I think, especially if you're going to start appealing to people who don't like speedrunning. I mean, go look at the comments on Smallant's videos. Go look at the comments on any speedrunner's videos, and it's talking about, oh, they're cheating. Oh, the same thing that you and I discussed in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Where I told you I thought that speedrunning was dumb. It was cheating. It made no sense. So in order for us to grow as a community, we have to expand. Mm-hmm. We have to talk. We have to, work out our differences. And say, hey, this is how we want to represent ourselves, because to the outsider, the whole issue with the SMO was nothing but a bunch of bickering back and forth and blocking each other.
Yeah. And so, I mean, here's my hot take, and this is, again, I'm not going to say this in a mean way in any way, shape, or form, but this is the honest truth, okay? And we've kind of talked about it a little bit. You look at the age range of speedrunners, right? They're teenagers.
Right.
They're really teenagers. And like, again, this is a big reason why we made the podcast. We're both older. We're both a little bit more mature. We've had a lot more experience. And you just look at the way that things were handling. You just go, dude, this is kids handling this. Right. This is a bunch of kids talking back and forth, not handling things in the way that it needs to be handled. I think a lot about Twitch streamers, and I think about speedrunners as they get older. Are they going to be able to market themselves? Because they have no marketing experience. Like Cheese is a perfect example of how to market yourself, and he learned that all on his own. Right. And I fully understand that. But there's so many kids out there who are speedrunning who don't have the marketing experience, don't understand how businesses work, how to grow their channel, how to grow a community, because they just sit down and they play the game all day. And no fault to them at all. They're really good at their game.
Oh, exactly.
But there's a certain level of maturity that needs to be had when handling situations like this. If you had more mature mods who were able to sit down and have a discussion, and and instead of putting up the paste bin and just saying this person said this, because that's what it really was at the end of the day. These tweets and these paste bins was he said, she said. That's all it was, and it's Smallant isn't as at fault with that either. It was the same thing on his side as it was the entire SMO community side. But if you were able to sit down and say, hey, I'm willing to come on here, or I'm willing to have a discussion live about this, or even, you know what, we don't even have to make it live, but we can say, hey, we can let the community know, hey, the mods and a couple of the runners, including Smallant, are getting together. We're having a civil conversation about what's going on here, come to a conclusion, because everyone has the exact same objective: grow the community. You read what Smallant was saying. He was saying, look, I'm bringing people into the community. He's not wrong. I mean, he gets like 2,000 views every single time he goes live.
Exactly.
He's going to bring people in, okay? So that's his goal. It's the same goal as the mods, okay? So it's just, at the end of the day, it's just, we have it's lacking the maturity, because no one has the capability or the understanding of how to handle situations like that. And you know what? There's a lot of learning to be done there. And
there really is.
Yeah.
I was going to say, think about, compare it to these young guys in the NFL and the NBA. Whenever they start out, a lot of them make really stupid choices.
Johnny Manziel.
Perfect example. But that's why a lot of these teams are hiring like PR guys to say, hey, help take care of this guy. Let's show him the ropes. Let's show him, how things should be done. And now I think what happened with the SMO community, and just with talking with some of the older runners as well, and this is not a slight at any of the younger runners at all.
Yeah, no.
But talking with them, there was a lot of, hey, I know I'm influential, but I don't want to get involved. I really want to stay neutral in this particular situation. Mm-hmm. Which is understandable. They still have a Twitch following that they're attempting to grow also. So they didn't want to rock the boat. But I think that by not rocking the boat, they should have at least, like you said, had the conversation. It didn't even have to be announced saying, hey guys, look, let's meet at 3:00 today. Let's sit down. Let's talk about it and come up with a decision, and then present that to the community and say, hey, we sat down, we talked, this is what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Bring the applicable folks to the table, which in this case would have been Smallant and the moderators. No one else needed to be a part of that.
I agree.
And then once that resolution was out there, it's done. It's over with. And people could provide their opinions on what they think, happened or shouldn't. And
to be fair, that could have been attempted. And they might have tried to do that, but there was no clear evidence that they had attempted to do that, at least. Again, all anyone saw was Smallant blocking this person, and then this moderator writing this giant paste bin. So it really comes down to, like I said, the maturity and the ability to understand how communities work, and how you're able. Again, you have such a great opportunity here. I don't think people understand. Like, I don't think that speedrunners. I talked to so many people at AGDQ. Like, it was so clear to me that people don't understand the immense opportunity you have here. Like,
not at all.
Not only like as a career wise, not only as money making wise, but just as a community. Like, how much a potential you have. I mean, you look at AGDQ. It took them forever to get to where they are, but they're raising $2+ million for charity.
Exactly.
Like, that just shows clearly how much potential there is here, but the only way you're able to do that is if you're going to come together.
Exactly. And that's where, even though AGDQ has their very, controlling, and like you said, there's not a whole lot of people selling. There's very strict rules about certain things. That's who they are as an organization. Mm. So if they can do that, right, and have all of those rules that they have, right, and get all of those people involved, right, charity event or not, we can do that as well.
Oh yeah, certainly. It's not a shadow of doubt in my mind.
But in order to do that, we've got to have those really tough conversations of, guys, we're getting to the point where we're influencing, however many hundreds of runners, right? So we need to sit down and talk about this, and not have Twitter wars.
And this whole thing has since been resolved, I believe. I mean,
it has.
This died off weeks ago, so I'm by no means We're by no means talking about this as a way to rekindle a flame. Like we want this. We want the communities to be settled. But really, what I'm harping on is the root situation, because this isn't the first time that we've had a community implode and have to like resolve itself in some way, shape, or form, either just simply by time or by someone finally bringing down the axe. In this situation, just time allowed everything to dissolve.
A Link to the Past has been in absolute chaos for a long time now. Specifically around the Alpha Gamer is his new name now. It used to be WQQQQWRT. There's always been some contention there on the boards as well, and we see it's the same thing there. It's about there are times in some of these communities, and I kind of attribute it back to, I'm not even going to say age at all. I'm going to say that maturity level of initiating almost bully status at times to particular individuals, and we've seen this. We've seen it pop up. Founded and unfounded. I'll give you a perfect example. All right. I'm going to bring up Auntie.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. So I'm going to bring up Auntie. Auntie was a Vice City speedrunner for a very long time. Auntie got caught cheating. He got caught. All right. Ultimately owned up to it, took his ban, left the community, right? Joined the Super Mario 64 community, all right? Started playing Super Mario 64 and progressed very fast. I don't want to say like the fastest in the world, but, progressed faster than a lot of people do. So, of course, people are immediately raising the red flag saying, hold on, wait, whoa, what the hell is going on here? We've got this cheater in the midst. And I said, well, how do we know that? We don't. So there was a lot of people in the community that were just completely against Auntie just because of what he had done a couple of years ago. And I get that. I get having, that thought in the back of your mind, like, hold on, wait a second, maybe. But his runs were getting verified. The runs that he was submitting was getting verified across the board. So, but there were people that were like literally going into his stream and, saying cheater, and all over tweeters shouldn't be allowed to play video, and brought to the point of, like I said, almost bullying. So where do you kind of draw that line is the question. Right now, he's got on the Nintendo 64 a verified 1527 7 months ago. 1 star is 8 minutes 4 seconds. So, I mean, you're talking 10th place on the Nintendo 64 board within a year. Now, for me personally, like I said, I don't think that we should be a community of bullying like that. I think it's a conversation that should be had. That, we sit down and we talk about it like, hey, this guy's progressed really fast, but, does this person who made a choice when they were younger to do something not very smart, when do they stop paying for that?
Right.
And Ante, I've never sat down and had a conversation with him to talk to him about it and ask him about it. I do know, he's running other GTA games now, but, when I saw that, to me, if I was an outsider looking in, that's not a community that I would choose to be a part of. Regardless of if this person is cheating. If they're cheating, there are ways that we go through and we figure that out. It's just the same thing of, you don't go on Twitter and say, hey, Scotch and Tie guy just robbed my house yesterday. And no, you call the police. You go through the process of, proving that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. If I thought you robbed my house yesterday, I don't call you 1,000 times and then blast you on Twitter and Facebook and not contact the authorities, right?
Right.
So,
yeah,
it's my.
I mean, it ultimately, I mean, it's just the thing I think about most, and I mean, this we can end the podcast with on this note, talking about just the future of speedrunning. Like, where are we going here?
Right.
I recall a moment at AGDQ, and D-Whatever was able to kind of archive it to a certain degree. But it was a moment where a bunch of Super Mario 64 speedrunners got together, and they all hooked up onto TVs in the it was either the practice room or like the free playroom.
Right.
And they all ran 70 star at the same time. And
right.
It might have been 120. It was either 70 or 120. I think it was 70 because it was quicker. But I remember like seeing this and just being like, dang, like this is so cool that we were able to get all these runners together all at the same time, all hit start at the exact same time, and they're running this game that they all love. And it's like there's like 30 of them playing this game. Like, this is so cool. But unfortunately, those sorts of things get overshadowed so easily by things like the stuff that happened to the SMO community.
Right.
And again, there's money to be made. There's business to be had. But more importantly, there's community to be grown. And that's the big thing is the community. I recall, I don't know if you know of this website. I learned of it in college. Total Frat Move. It's just this website that kind of chronicles fraternities and fraternity life and fraternity culture. But then there was a spin-off of it called Post-Grad Problems, and it's kind of like the culture of postgraduates and that sort of thing. And that community died, and actually the business went under, and they stopped posting stuff to the website because they ran out of money. And I look at that community, and and the thing that I realized, the reason why it went under was because they were pushing a brand, they weren't pushing the community. Like, it was all about the brand. It was all about living the post-grad life. It's all about having mimosas on Sunday and it's all about Friday night and having the Sunday scaries, and they were selling t-shirts and they were selling koozies and they were selling this, that, and the other thing. And it wasn't about just the community as a whole. Like, it was actually funny. Like, I got together 20 people from that community because we eventually migrated over to like Reddit and what's the chat called? There's oh my gosh, GroupMe. We all moved over to GroupMe. We created a GroupMe of 100 different people from the community, but we did that ourselves. Because they weren't doing it. They were just pushing the brand. Right. And I got 20 people to come together who kind of knew each other to a certain degree. We trusted each other enough. And we came together for a weekend, went to a beach house and hung out and had a great time.
Sure.
We didn't talk about PGP at all the entire time. And that proved to me that PGP wasn't about the community. It was about the brand.
Exactly.
And the beautiful thing about speedrunning is it starts out with the community. It's all about the community. So the only way to go is up. It's just we have to push it in a particular way, and we have to brand it. And yes, you have to brand it to a certain degree, but you brand it so that it's focused on the community. It's focused on the people. It's focused on the love of the game. And again, the reason why this podcast isn't purely about speedrunning is because it's for the love of the gaming. As a whole, it's for the love of video games. Like, I don't run OOT, but OOT, Ocarina of Time, that's an amazing game.
It is.
It's so beautiful, and it's just it encapsulated the 90s really of 3D gaming.
It did.
So if we can focus on that, if we can direct it in that direction, this community can only grow.
I agree 100%. And I tell people all the time, newer runners that come to my stream, now is the time.
Mm-hmm.
Now is the time. Why? Because, you know, I talked about earlier, Cheese, Simply, all of those guys, they've been doing this for 7, 8, 9 years. A lot of them, even before the bounty, moved on. They moved on for a little bit. Even now we're seeing, you know, Simply doing it, like I told you, you know, all coins, all signs, stuff like that. It's not unbeatable, you know, and so because people also kind of find that intimidating. Oh, well, you know, Cheese has been running this for 18 million years. You know, when am I ever going to be on the top? And it's possible. I'll give you an example right now. Just 7 days ago, Shands just got the all signs world record, 26 minutes and 9 seconds. Just 7 days ago, guys. You know, this is the time. No joke, the time to be a part of this community and just speedrunning in general. It's absolutely crazy not to. Because I'll never be world record holder. Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares? You know, I'll kind of leave with this. The very first partner streamer that ever came into my chat, ever, was Blue Bob.
Blue Bob.
I mean, Blue Bob.
What a legend.
I had maybe 1 or 2 viewers, and Blue Bob sat there with me for almost an hour and a half. He didn't even plug his videos. Nothing.
Yep.
Just talking with me about, you know, different things that I could try, or hey, change your angle a little bit here. You know, finally someone else said, hey, that's the guy that does those awesome tutorials for SM64. You know? So he sat there with me an hour to an hour and a half of his time, right? And explained things, showed me things, right? And I'll never forget that. Lunar Jump, all right, the man of pure emotion in SM64 comes into my chat, right, and speaks positively. Richard Sage, you know, second place right now on OOT and E%, the GIM mode or GIM route, comes into my chat, talks about positivity. You know, that's what these guys who have already been here, you know, working on a sub-hour 70-star time and working on a sub-20 16-star time, they've been there. So now they're coming back and giving back to the community.
Yeah.
Right. They're not interested in I gotta hold this world record. I've got to hold this world record. You know, that's what being a community is all about. 100%.
Yeah, I remember that moment for me was Kevin Crunch. You know, he's not a big guy. You know, he's not. You know.
Oh, Kevin Crunch is the biggest. Come on now.
He's a big guy. I love the guy. No, don't get me wrong. But you know, I just remember him coming into the stream and he did the exact same thing for me. He was like, "No, the angle's wrong here, dude. You need to do this," and it just it changed it for me. And now him and I, like, we're good friends. Like, I've got his number. I'm making sure I'm checking in on him constantly. I live in Florida. He lives in California.
Right. All the way across the U.S.
That's what, so. And another thing you were saying, like, not only is now is the time to become a speedrunner, but also, like, if you're a speedrunner, do not waste the opportunity right now. You have such, oh my, if I were, I remember thinking at AGDQ, man, had I knew about speedrunning when I was 6 years old, when I first picked up the game, I'm not saying that I would be the best right now. I'm not saying that at all. Like, these guys have skills and talent that I do not have.
Agreed.
But I just imagine, like, man, the opportunity that I would have had when I was at that young of an age, like the ability to not only grow the community, but also to, like, create a foundation, play the game and create a foundation for myself for that kind of a career. Because, you know, but at the end of the day, I think I want to hammer it home, and you said it already, but I want to say it again. It's for the love of the game. It's not, you know, some of these guys, you know, Cheese, Simply, Aki, Draws, these guys, who have had world records, and Punke, these guys who are going, Liam is oh my God, Liam is a great example, just gunning for the world record. Yes, of course. Like they want that world record. They want that faster time. Liam just he is pining for that 138 right now. He is on there every single day. But at the end of the day, we can't all be Liam. I'm not Liam. I'm never going to be Liam. I'm never going to be Draws. I'm never going to be Aki. I'm never going to be Benji or any of these other guys. But you know what? I love speedrunning.
Exactly.
And that's all it is for me. You ask me Pokemon Stadium, why? It's RNG. I just love it. Who cares?
Exactly.
Who cares?
Exactly.
So
I agree.
I think that's a good place to leave it off, though.
I do too.
Yeah.
But we have all of these social media things that are popping up for the Gaming Dads podcast.
Oh yeah, we got to push this. Yeah, we got the Discord.
Yep.
We've got the Twitter. We've got the YouTube channel. We're gonna try to create a Twitch if we can get on a good schedule. We'll try to do these live.
That would be great.
We'll see about that. I know you've got the Facebook. I don't have Facebook. I got rid of Facebook. I can't stand it anymore. So you've got the Facebook, right?
I'm on it.
Make sure to check all that out. Tweet us out. Facebook us out. I don't know what you do on Facebook anymore.
I don't either.
Get the YouTube link, send it around, do whatever. We're going to try to do this consistently. We'll see how we do. Being two dads who...
Right.
I've got a 9-month-old and you've got a 9-week-old and you've got a 7-month-old.
Right.
So...
but, and any ideas that you guys have listening...
Oh, yeah.
Or any feedback that you guys have of anything that we talked about, we want to create this discussion specifically in Discord, or email us, or let us know what you want to hear. We're here for you, and we're pretty much here to talk about what our passions are and what your passions are. That's the whole point.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, we'll leave it at that. That was a great conversation. I loved that.
That was really good.
That was good.
I enjoyed it.
All right. Well, we'll see you later then.
Absolutely. Hopefully next week.